Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Digital Juice tutorial, and this time we're going to take a look at getting started with animated lower thirds for Adobe's After Effects. Now, as I start out all my getting started with tutorials, I have to remind you that if you haven't downloaded the most recent version of the Juicer, you need to head on over to the Digital Juice website and download it. It's an absolutely free download for Windows and for all versions of Mac, including Mountain Lion. And as of this recording, the most recent version of the Juicer is Juicer 3.89D build 270. Again, an absolutely free download for Windows and for all versions of Mac. Now, I do also want to point out that animated lower thirds is a downloadable product. So what does that mean for you? Well, once you've made your purchase through the Digital Juice website, you're going to receive an email telling you that your product is ready for download. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate right back up to the top, and what we're going to do is we're going to log into our Digital Juice account. In this case, I'm going to log into my own account, of course, and let me just punch in my password here. And once I have logged in, all I simply need to do is to navigate right up here to my account. What I'm going to do once I'm inside my account is I'm going to navigate right over here to the left to Digital Juice Downloads. Once I'm in the download section of my account, you'll see that I have all of the products in here ready to download and to install into the Juicer. Now in this case, we're working with Animated Lower Thirds Collection 1 for Adobe's After Effects. I always love when I see that Collection 1 telling me that chances are this product line is going to have more versions down the road. Always gets me excited for what's to come. Now, what I need to do next is I need to come in and see what is available for download. In this case, what we actually have is two different files. Now, these two files make up the one collection. Now, we're going to get into what you're going to need to do to install this in just a second. What you're going to need to do is to download both parts, part 1 and part 2. You'll see both are about 1.71 gigabytes big, and once you're done your download, you're going to be ready to install this into the Juicer. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide Firefox here, and let's get into the Juicer now, and let's talk about installation. Okay, so let's Command and Tab into the Juicer. Now, I obviously want to point out before we move on, I am working on a Mac, but everything I'm showing you here works exactly the same whether you're working on a Mac or whether you're working on a PC. Now, the reason that I always remind people, and I always get emails saying, Kevin, why do you always talk about, updating the Juicer? Well, what's important to keep in mind is that you always want to stay on top of the most recent version of the Juicer, because if you don't, what's going to happen is you might actually not have some of the product options over here on the left that you should have if you don't have the most recent version of the Juicer. Also, by having the most recent version of the Juicer, it's going to let you get in and import all of these different product lines, because the current versions of the Juicer are updated so that they're compatible with this new product line, or these, obviously, there could be multiple new product lines. So that's why you always want to stay on top of the most recent version of the Juicer. Okay, so because this is a downloaded product, what we want to do is we want to navigate up to File, and we want to come down to not install products, but to install downloaded content. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to select that, and I'm going to navigate here onto my Mac drive, and I'm going to come into the Downloads folder. I'm just going to sort by the date modified here, just to make sure that we are looking at the most recent things that I downloaded, and you'll see that I've actually downloaded the different collections here of lower thirds. I have the AE version right here. I have the Motion 4 and Motion 5 version, and of course the Premiere version right here. You can always tell the different versions by the abbreviations towards the end of the file name. So basically what I would do, because I'm installing the version for Adobe's After Effects, is I would simply select one of the items and I would say open. What's going to happen is I'm going to be brought to the license window. Now obviously I encourage you to read the license agreement before coming down to the bottom and assuming that you do agree, saying I agree. What you're going to do is say continue. Then you're going to be asked, where do you want to install this product line to? Now you'll see that for me, I had it going to an external drive. That's an external 2 terabyte drive. I actually prefer doing that because in many cases, especially as we all know, with the fantastic products from Digital Juice, we can have quite a lot of them. And in most cases, we're going to want to have all of them on our system at one time. So that's why I always encourage people to go out and actually get an external hard drive just for the Digital Juice products, so you can easily swap them out and always have them available to you at a moment's notice. So in this case, this is actually going to the local drive. So what I would do if I was actually going to install this product is I would switch it to that external drive into the Digital Juice folder, and I would simply come down and say install. Now what's important to keep in mind, I'm just going to cancel out of that because obviously I don't need to install. Like I said, I've already done that in the past. What's important to keep in mind is that especially with these products that have multiple parts, when you download them, you're going to want to make sure that you install part 1, and then right as soon as you're done that, install part 2. What's going to happen is, as soon as you're done installing part 1, it's going to take you to that section of the juicer and show you the products that were installed. But that's not everything. That's what's important to keep in mind. Make sure that as soon as you're done installing part 1, get right up there and install part 2. And if there happens to be more parts than that, obviously you sort of see where we're going, and you're going to want to keep installing all of these different parts until you've installed the entire product line, because the last thing you want is to miss out on a part of a product because you didn't install it. Okay, now because this is a product specifically for Adobe's After Effects, if we want to find it once it's been installed, all we need to do is simply navigate right over here to Projects and Templates. We're going to come down to the Adobe's After Effects projects, and here is this product line. Now in this case, this is the only product that I have installed in the juicer. But if I happen to have multiple Adobe's After Effects projects, product lines installed in the juicer, there's a very easy way to get in and to navigate through them. How do we do that? Well, what we can do is we can actually navigate right over here to filter mode. And how I, pretty much at its basic and core, how I like to use it is I like to come in and sort by product. Now you'll see in this case, all I have is the animated lower third collection. But if you had some ready to goes and product lines like that, you would actually find all of the different product lines right here under product. All you would then need to do is simply select the product line you want to see. In this case, animated lower thirds. You'll see the juicer's updated to show me only the elements for that product line. Filter mode is a fantastic way to work inside the juicer, and if you don't use it, I highly recommend it. It's really going to speed up your overall workflow. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to navigate over here to the actual elements themselves. Now if we want to preview any one of them at any time, it's very easy. All we have to do is simply click on them, and we're going to get a preview up here at the top portion of the juicer that's going to preview this element for us. You'll see it's going to get back to the beginning, and it's going to constantly loop it until I tell it to stop. Now that obviously works with any one of the lower thirds that we have inside of the animated lower thirds collection. Now you're going to see that we have some other tabs at the top. We have some animated elements. Now you'll see once I click on it, I don't see anything because in this case there are no specific animated elements available to me in the animated lower thirds collection. But it's always a good idea to always check these tabs out. Why? Well, because with certain product lines, you're actually going to get some bonus animations or bonus elements that you're going to be able to export and use, not necessarily just in that specific product line, whether it's ready to go, animated lower thirds. You can actually take those elements and export them and use them in any project that you happen to be working on. Huge bonus. Not only do they go with obviously whatever product line, whether it's like I said, ready to go or the animated lower thirds, but get in and use them in any project that you want. You're going to see that we have the fonts tab next, and to get in you'll see we have all kinds of different fonts here. So for example, we have a Bell Regular. If I want to see the font, I can simply come down and I can click on to see it, and if I don't have this font installed, you'll see that I can simply navigate right down here to the lower right hand corner and install it. Now how do I know that I don't have it installed? Well, you can see right over here I'm actually being told that I don't have it installed. So what I would normally do then is simply go through and I would install each one of the fonts here once I install the lower thirds collection so that I know that I have all of these fonts ready to go. Now for the purposes of what we're doing, I'm not going to go and install all the fonts. I'm just simply going to close that font window. But like I said, it's a very good habit to get into, so that way you can always make sure that no matter what font goes with that lower third, you're always going to have it on your system. And of course we have the last but certainly not least tab, the Extras tab. Now in this case again, nothing in here, but depending on the product line, you might find some hidden gems in here that you're going to want to use. Okay, now something else that I want to show you before we start exporting these elements. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back to the Templates tab, and I'm going to come right over here to this little drop down right here that most people miss, and this is the Customize tab. Because you know what? As much as I can appreciate having, what is this, 2, 4, 6, 8 little thumbnails across, it makes the elements hard to see. And it means I have to go through and actually click on each one to get a preview of it. But I want to actually see these a little bit bigger. What I'm going to do is navigate right over here to the Customize drop-down. I'm going to click on Customize. And what I like to do is to actually get in and set how many thumbnails across that I want to have. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that to be, I don't know, let's set that to be like 3. And you can see that I can also come in and set the gap around the thumbnails to be 5. And here's a couple other options that I highly suggest that you select. In one case, the very first one, I have to display the file name. Now, how else would I see the file name? Well, any other way to see the file name is for me to simply mouse over it and hold it, and the juicer will tell me what the name of that element is. But I'd rather see what that is. And what I can also do if I want to is show icons only on mouse over. Now the icons it's referring to are icons you'll see here in the lower right hand or the lower left hand corner. Now in this case we only have them in the lower right hand corner, but in some cases you'll have them on both sides. And for me, I always like to see the icons. I like to know they're there. I don't want to have to mouse over an element to get to them. What I'm going to do is simply say OK, and you're going to see now that I have a much bigger view of these thumbnails, and I also have the name of the element. You'll see also as I mouse over it, it tells me the name of it, but I've also got the name of the element right there, so it's very easy for me just to scroll down, see what the names of all the elements are, and to get a little bit of a closer up view of the different lower thirds. Very nice. Okay, now for the purposes of what we're doing, I'm just going to set this back here. I'll just leave that. I'm going to leave the display file name, because especially when you're looking at it in a smaller thumbnail view, I just like to know what the names of each one of these elements are. Okay, so let's talk about exporting now. Now, to export any of these elements is very simple. The easiest way to do it is to simply navigate down to the element and select it, and then I'm simply going to right click on it and say Add to Batch. Now as soon as I do, you're going to notice that I'm brought to the Collect Files screen, not to the Batch panel like you might think you normally would. Now the Batch panel is only for actual physical elements, and because we're exporting a project, we're brought to the Collect Files screen. So all I'm going to do is I'm simply going to send this element to the desktop, and I'm going to say Collect Now. Now that I've done that, we're actually just going to forget what I just did for a second, because I just want to talk about a couple of the other ways to get this element out of the juicer. Now the other way to do it is to simply navigate down to the Adobe's After Effects icon, and you're going to see that we have 4 options in here. Now I'm going to jump down to the very end because we actually just talked about adding to the batch by right clicking. Well, you can also add to the batch by simply clicking on the Adobe's After Effects icon and heading down to Add to Batch. Now the first option you have is Collect Files, which works almost exactly the same as Add to Batch. The next option you have is Send Project to After Effects. Now you'll see in this case I don't have my After Effects location set up, but if I did, I could open the element as a new project, or I could import it into the current project I'm working on. Now the next option is Reveal in Finder. Now I always try to sort of sway people away from using that option, because basically what this is going to do is it's going to send you to the folder on the drive where you have the animated lower thirds collection installed to when you did your initial juicer installation. Now if you were to get in, open that project, do some work, and then save it out over top of the file where you found it, you're going to be overwriting the file that the juicer is referencing every time it exports it. Therefore, if you were to overwrite that file, then come back into the juicer and then save out the element again, you're actually going to be looking at the new version of the file. This is why I always say either collect files or add to batch, since they pretty much do exactly the same thing. This way you're creating a copy of what is on your drive and don't have to worry about overwriting what is already there. Now you'll remember that I actually already exported this element, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop playback here, and I'm going to come up here, I'm going to hide the juicer by simply hitting Command and H on the Mac, or I could just minimize it on Windows. And you'll see now on my desktop I have a folder called, appropriately enough, Grand Show, and most people think that this is the After Effects project, but it's actually not. If I right click on it, you'll see the very second option I have down here is Show the Original, telling me that this is an alias. Well, of course the original is inside Full HD, and there it is right there. You'll see the Grand Show project. Then I have the elements that go with it. You'll see I can simply hit the space bar. We got some cool particles happening there. We have our little marquee, and we have a texture element. And of course we also have, and this is very handy, we have the font that goes with Grand Show exported for us from the juicer into a folder. This way, let's say you needed to export this, take it to a different machine that doesn't have this font. You know what? You're all set to go because it was exported when you exported your element. Okay, Now the moment of truth. Let's get into Adobe's After Effects and let's work with this lower third element. Okay, so let's Command and Tab into Adobe's After Effects CC. Now it's important for me to point out before we move on that the animated lower thirds are supported in Adobe's After Effects CS4 and above, so it's important to keep that in mind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to Project, and I can obviously open this one of two ways. I could open this as a project, or what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to right click. I'm going to say Import, and I'm going to say File, and I'm going to head to the desktop here, and I'm just going to select Grand Show, and there's my, actually let's go into the folder, the HD folder. There's my project. I don't want to open the alias. I'm simply going to say Open, and what's going to happen is that project's going to be imported into my current project as a folder. Now of course I could simply double click on Grand Show, and there's the element. All set to go. Very, very nice. Now, basically what we could do with this element is we could come in. I'm just going to import. Let's just pick an element here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come, actually, let's come this way. I'm going to come down here to my Mac drive here, and I'm going to come up here to Footage. And let's see, what should we use? Well, this is, sort of a very Las Vegas-y lower third, so I think I'm going to go with some boxing footage. Why not? And I'm just going to pick some boxing footage that I know is quite long in duration. Now, this is obviously footage from Digital Juice's VideoTrax HD, and the easiest way to tell what is the longest shot inside of the boxing collection that I've exported is to look at the file size. The higher the file size, the larger the file. There we go. So I'm just going to select the 178.8, this one here. I'm going to hit the space bar here. Perfect. We've got our boxer boxing. And what I'm going to do is simply say Open. Now, the other reason I wanted to import this particular element is because it is DVC Pro 720p. Now, I know you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Kev, what difference does that make? What's important to keep in mind is that this element is, like I said, DVC Pro 960 by 720. And our Grand Show lower third is actually 1920 by 400. So we're going to need to do a little bit of formatting with this title, or with this lower third. So all I'm going to do is simply select my element here. I'm just going to drag it and drop it right down here into the Create New Composition button. Now, of course, because the footage has been flagged as being 4:3, what I need to do is I need to navigate right down here to the Toggle Pixel Aspect Ratio Correction button so that I look at this the way that it actually is in widescreen. Now, of course, for me to take the element and drop it into this new composition, very simple. All I'm going to do is simply grab it and drag it and drop it right down here like such, and there's the element. You can see it's very, very big. Now, I obviously want to get in and I want to change this a little bit. I obviously want to change the text that goes in here. Now, I could come up to Grand Show, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm simply going to double click on it in my composition. And the one thing I love about how these projects are set up, they're set up so very simple. You'll see that once I get in here, I know what is the layer that I can use to edit the text because it tells me right here, Edit Text. What I'm going to do is simply double click on that, and you'll see that I have two text elements. I have the bottom element here, which is Casino City, and then I have the top element, which is the Welcome to Fabulous. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come in and let's edit our Welcome to Fabulous. Actually, you know what? I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to edit the Casino City. Why? Because I'm going to type my name in here, I think. There we go. Let's type in Kevin P. McAuliffe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this here by hitting Command and A. Now let's just make sure I put the K in here. There we go. I'm going to select it all by hitting Command and A on the Mac, Control and A on Windows. I'm going to copy that, and I'm simply going to paste it onto the other layers here, just like such. There we go. And you'll see now that if I switch back to the Edit Text, what we can do now is simply see there's my Welcome to Fabulous Kevin P. McAuliffe. We're obviously going to change Welcome to Fabulous. And if I come back another layer here, there we go. Now, obviously, Kevin P. McAuliffe a little bit big. So what I can do here, obviously, is simply select this element, and I'm just going to scale it down a little bit. There we go. Just so that it fits a little bit better in the super. Very, very nice. Okay. What I'm going to do now is change the Welcome to Fabulous, and we're of course going to go back and edit text simply into text 2, and we're going to say the one, the only. There we go. Because maybe this is my, boxing nickname. I'm the one, the only Kevin P. McAuliffe. So now that I have that typed in, all I have to do is simply come back to Grand Show and take a look at that. There's the one, the only Kevin P. McAuliffe. Now, of course, it might need another comma, but you know what? We're okay with this for right now. Now, remember, I already dropped this into my timeline. There we go. So all I need to do now is simply pick where I want it to go. I'm going to come down to about here, maybe. And I'm going to put some fades in. Now before I actually do that, I want to point something else out here that's very important. These elements are fantastic, and they're fantastic on just sort of their, I'll say their preset, pretty much the way that they're exported from the juicer. But you know what? It's always a great idea to take these elements and take them a little bit to the next level. And let me show you what I mean by that. What I'm going to do is over the span of this super, I'm going to have a lower, or not a lower third, I'm going to have a lens flare move across some of the letters here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new adjustment layer by simply hitting Command Option and Y, Control Alt and Y for all my Windows friends out there. And we're going to have this adjustment layer start and stop where our graphic stops. There we go. Perfect. And all I'm going to do is simply navigate to Effects and Presets, and I'm going to type in Lens Flare 3D. Now this is Boris Continuum Complete's Lens Flare 3D. Now obviously you could use any lens flare effect that you want. I just happen to have this one on my system. And what I'm going to do is just choose from one of the millions of presets that we have here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come down to the standard 105 prime. There we go. This is just a very basic lens flare. And I'm going to cut the intensity probably about in half. I'm going to put it at about 40. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're just going to position this. Now before I do that, what I need to do is just scale our lower third down a little bit here. Something else I want to point out here, and I'm actually just going to undo that for a second. I'm going to turn on my grid and my guides here, my title safe. And I want to point out in here that we have actually two sets of title safes. We have 16:9 title safe out here and picture safe, but we also have 4:3 safe in here, meaning if this was going to be down converted and edge cropped, this would be my safe title, this would be my safe picture. Same on the other side as well. So you're not going to want in most cases your text to go outside of this inside line here, because like I said, if your show happens to be down converted and center cut, you're going to lose a lot of text that's outside of your safes. In this case we're okay, but I still want to scale this down a little bit here, probably to about there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to position this right down here towards the bottom, just like that. And I'm going to come back to my lens flare here. And I'm going to select the lens flare, and let's just reposition it where we're going to want it to go. Now how we do that is actually very simple. I'm just going to twirl down light source, I'm going to twirl down built-in, and I'm just going to position this probably over top of the E in Kevin, just kind of like that. Now as soon as I do, you'll see the lens flare trails off towards the top of the screen. Maybe this is still a little bit too bright. I don't want it that much. Even that's now not enough. Let's go 32. There we go. Okay, and let's just repo this again just to position it more so on the E, just like that. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is over the span of this title bean here, we're just going to move our source position just a little bit over. I'm just going to come down to the end here just like such, just adjust its position like that. Very nice. Okay, you'll see there we go. Over time it just moves ever so slowly across Kevin. Very cool. And what we could also do if we want, I'm just going to go back to Boris Continuum Complete. I'm just going to punch in Film Glow. I'm just going to give this element an ever so slight glow before we do our lens flare. I'm just going to turn my lens flare off here for a second. Let's grab Film Glow here, just like such. Now you'll see because this is an adjustment layer, it's affecting everything. Now I'm going to adjust that in just 1 second. But I wanted to show this to you here because it creates a very cool effect. And I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to adjust the intensity, maybe put it down about 40. I think that's not too bad. But like I said, it's trickling down and impacting everything. That's very easy to get around. All I have to do is simply select these two elements. I'm going to pre-comp them and say lower third and effects. Just like that. And now we have a little bit of a glow on our lower third, and of course we also have our lens flare here that I need to turn back on since I just turned it off. And all I need to do here, I'm just going to come back, I'm going to start this at about the 2-second mark here, and we'll just select both layers. I'm just going to hit the left square bracket, and let's just add a dissolve in here. There we go, and we'll have it last for, I don't know, maybe about 15 frames here. And we'll just add another keyframe. We'll do sort of the same thing down towards the end here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these two keyframes. We'll just come down to the end. I'm going to paste these in. And what I normally just do is just come in like such, mix them around just so that I know exactly where my fade is. Perfect, just like that. And the cool thing now is that all I have to do to simply take these keyframes that I just added to one layer and paste them onto the next layer, I just simply have to copy them by selecting the opacity, which will then in turn select all those keyframes, we're just going to go to Grand Show and paste them in, and what I have now is an entire element that fades up with my glow and my lens flare. Now all I have to do is simply come right back here to the 2-second mark. I'm going to jump back into the main comp because I can now crop this off right here. I know the end is down at about the 7-second mark here, so I'll just get it about close like that. Crop it off right there. Very cool. Let's give this a quick preview. Now, of course, this is previewing what you're looking at in real time. This is, of course, DVC Pro 720p HD along with an HD element that we exported from the juicer, and what we've now created is a very cool lower third element. But what we've also done is added a couple little extras just to take it to the next level. So I hope this tutorial has shown you how simple it is to get in, not only download and install, but select your elements, export them from the juicer, get in and use them in Adobe's After Effects, and with the help of a few, in this case, third-party plugins, but you can also use your standard plugins that you already have inside of Adobe's After Effects to take what's an awesome element and take it just that little bit further to the next level. So if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can head on over and post them in the Digital Juice forums. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.